first one. You're giving me attention. And then you're making me pose. And I beat need those. And I beat that one by one.
So welcome to another episode of the Pepper Soup Talk Show. We have a very special guest today. This is, her name is Dom Fowler, and she's a mom, she's an educator, she's a business owner, and she also have her own podcast show called For the Records podcast. So with no further introductions, Dominique Fowler, welcome to the Pepper Soup Talk Show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So go ahead. So if you could just give us a little bit of introduction of who you are,
Okay.
and what your podcast is about, that would be great.
All right. So I feel like Sekou just told you all about me, but but yeah, my name is Dom Fowler. Dominique, but just call me Dom. And I'm a mom, and I am an educator, and all those good things. I started a podcast, For the Record podcast, to have deep, vulnerable, necessary, therapeutic conversations. I actually went to school for broadcast journalism, so that's actually like podcasting was always something that I was most likely going to do. I worked for iHeart for years in Philly here, like for Power 99, and I realized quickly that I didn't want to be on the radio because I didn't want people telling me what I could talk about. And I didn't want to entertain with my love for broadcasting, but I wanted to more so empower. And so I had a podcast before that lasted like for like a year or two, and it was called Pretty Girl Privilege, and it was like me and another girl talking about just everything. And it didn't last because it wasn't as purposeful to me. You know, it did fall into that entertainment, like gimmicky boat, and it didn't feel right to me. Right. So I decided to start my own podcast, and that's where For the Record came from. And that's what we do. The reason it's called For the Record is because I want people to come and say things that they want to say for the record. You know what I mean? Say things that actually like mean something, you know, that they actually want to have stamped and put out there, you know? And I wanted to just be as real as possible. And that's really what it is. It's just a vulnerable podcast.
Amazing. Dom, you go by Dom, right?
Yeah, Dom.
So we're very excited to have you on the talk show today. And we're going to have a few questions for you. But before we start, Toby, would you like to introduce yourself?
Oh, you know who I am. We've been doing this for 3 years. So, you know, I'm here co-hosting with Sekou today. And yeah, we'll just get right into it.
Awesome. So, Dom, when I think of you, I got a chance to actually also listen to a few of your podcast episodes. By the way, I was impressed by the aesthetic.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
nice studio.
We try to sort of catch up to your level. We got a long way to go.
No, this is nice. You got to get it how you live. That's the thing, by any means necessary.
But as you can see, we have a pepper soup on the table for you. And of course, we have few adult beverages.
Yes. Both are delicious.
Awesome. So I sort of think of you as like the generation, like the voice of our generation. So I feel like our generation, we have a lot of outlets now and opportunity to truly like express ourselves. Yeah. To express like how we feel and what do we think about the world that's happening around us. Yeah. And we have the technology, and I think one of the things like podcasts did is like give us that access. But I'm also loving how you're using this tool or technology of podcasts to really push this concept of vulnerability. Why is creating a space where people can be vulnerable about who they are is like so important to you, right? And why do you think it's important for other people to be in that space as well?
Got you. Yes. Okay. So I didn't even realize that I'm just a naturally like very raw person, right? Like, so when I'm just not really private. I'm just like open to talking about anything. I'm like an open book, right? Like I don't have like skeletons in my closet. I'm okay with just being open about life, right? And I realized that it was shocking to people. Like, I would have conversations with people and they'd be like, oh my gosh, Dom, like, why'd you just say that? And I'm just like, what's the problem? And once I realized that other people weren't as comfortable like being open about real things, I was like, that's a gift. You know, I recognize it as a gift, and I'm like, okay, so let me share this. I've been through a lot, like, in life. I feel like I've been through everything. Name it, and I've been through it. And you know, like, in life, I'm like always thinking like, why do I have to go through all this, you know? And then I feel like it just all started to make sense. At this age of 31, you know, I started to realize, okay, people were telling me that like my vulnerability and me being willing to just be open and just converse about the deepest, darkest things just normally and naturally is a gift that I want to share. And I've been through all these things because I can share how I got through them with the world, and I have no reservations about that, you know? I don't feel weird about it. It's okay for me, but for a lot of people it's not. And so I have to be able to have those conversations that help other people be more vulnerable, you know, be able to be more raw and just be more comfortable in that. Because I think, you know, there are several reasons why other people aren't so vulnerable, but I think that one thing I do want to take away from it is the shame. You know what I mean? Like, if people can look at me and they're just like, okay, well, she's willing to just say it all, you know, and she's doing well for herself, you know, and she's okay, and she's whatever I am, you know, then they can feel more comfortable being the same way.
But so, like I said, I think we often hear the word vulnerability. It sounds easy, you know, but it's harder to actually start it or act on it. Especially, like, you know, for our generation, especially some people, even people who are closer to you, most of the time we not tend to be vulnerable with them. Yeah. So can you, and I know, like, you started by saying, like, you're a blunt person.
Yes,
some of our personality are like that. Yeah. And I tend to be like that. Yeah. Too. And sometimes people kind of like tell me, like, I don't have any filter, right? But why? And you talked about this stigma of being vulnerable. Can you dissect on that a little bit? Like, first, let's talk about why was it difficult for you to be vulnerable? Like, what are some steps that you took to feel like, okay, now I'm comfortable being vulnerable? And so this is like a 3-part question.
Yeah, I'm like, what is the question?
And the last part was like, what was that feeling like you had when you feel like, hey, I could finally be vulnerable now? Yeah. And not worry so much about like, what would someone think of it, or how would someone judge my vulnerability? Yeah. But how would make you feel as a human being or as a person, and what happened when those people around you, did it impact people around you when they start to notice that you being vulnerable? Did they start acting differently, or did they embrace you more? But walk us through the sort of like the process of it. Okay. You know, not so much more like the outcome, but I want to make sure, like, what was you doing and what was going through your mind when you were sort of taking these vulnerabilities steps.
Got you. I love that you asked, like, for me to talk you through the process. It was a loaded question. Yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna try to answer it, but yeah. So like I was saying, like, being vulnerable just came naturally to me. Like, I don't really know. Like, I wouldn't be able to walk someone through the process of becoming more vulnerable, or maybe I could, but for me personally, it was just something that was natural, that I didn't know that I was doing it. I didn't know that I just was like a blunt, like, I just didn't have a filter, you know? And until people started to tell me, like, girl, like, I can't believe you just said that. Like, people are clutching their pearls, and I just didn't realize I even said anything wrong, you know? And, but yes, that was affecting my life when it came to other people, because those people are like, why are you so blunt? Why are you so brash? Like, why do you have to say things the way that you're saying them? You know? And for a while, I like course corrected because I thought I was doing something wrong, you know? And I would not be so vulnerable. And what actually ended up happening was I became like a person who would avoid things a lot, right? And I started to deal with avoidance issues, and just like, I was not confrontational. Like, I just would, like, you know what I would do? I would just distance myself. Or just like cut people off, like, really easily, like, and just not talk to them, like, because I would have an issue, but I didn't want to bring it to them because I didn't want to be too blunt and brash for them and open for them. And so I would just avoid it, you know?
Right.
And so this actually brings me back to my podcast, because once I started therapy is when I decided to start my podcast, because I wanted to make sure I was like, I'm going to be being vulnerable, but I don't want to just be putting out this like person who doesn't have it together. You know what I mean? Right. So I wanted to be working on myself in the midst of all this. But through therapy, I realized that I was having avoidance issues, like, and it was because the people around me I was distancing myself from them because I didn't want to be what they were calling me, which was blunt, brash, like too open, and which is ultimately like just me being vulnerable, you know?
Right.
And so, yeah, I actually had to cut off a lot of people in life, actually, at this point. But I course corrected again and got back to being my vulnerable self, because I realized that it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. Right. And I allow people to make me feel like it was, but it actually is like much more healthy than avoiding things, you know. And I am learning to communicate effectively, because that's important, right? Like, we can say we're blunt and I can be brash and like whatever the case may be, and I want to keep that realness and rawness about myself. Right. But I also want to be able to communicate with people effectively. I don't want to, you know, for someone to not be able to be receptive to what I'm saying because of how I'm saying it. So that's something I'm working on. But yeah, people around me hate my vulnerability, and especially because, like I said, I've been through a lot. So me being vulnerable is sometimes exposing other people in my life, because if I have a family situation that I'm like openly talking about, and the people in my family who were a part of that situation, now their business is out in the streets too, you know? Right. And so that's that's something I just have to take on the chin, you know, because it's just like, I'm not going to not tell my story and just be who I am, because it puts you out there too. Like, I mean, it's facts. Right. Like, I have to live in realness, like, you know, so like whatever happens in realness from my perspective, I'm going to have to share it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, not to bash anyone or drag anyone through the mud. Anything I'm saying is always with grace and, you know, no judgment, you know, it's just realness. But that has like caused me to like, you know, not be like have issues with family members or even friends or like whoever has an issue with me being who I am, which is a really vulnerable person. I understand that they won't be able to be a part of my life because I'm not changing it about me. That's
really, go ahead, Toby.
No, so I just want to ask, you know, growing up, you know, through the years, do you feel, or one of the issues with vulnerability, you feel like people will exploit it? Have you able to find, I guess, a medium between being vulnerable enough not to be exploited by what you're sharing with people around you?
Yes. Oh, I'm so happy you asked that, because that's another thing I had to learn. That's another reason why like therapy is important, and like me working on myself is important, because it's just like, yes, you can share too. You can overshare, and you can overshare things that you're not actually healed from yet, you know? And healing is like a constant thing anyway, you know what I mean? So like you can share something with someone that you're actually not okay with hearing thrown back at you, you know what I mean? And they can use that against you, and you have to be open-minded about that, and you have to just understand, like, share what you can afford to share, you know what I mean? And so yeah, I have learned that, because there was a point in time where it was just like I was sharing like the deepest, darkest things in my brain that never needed to be out in the world, you know? And I definitely at this point I feel like I understand how to share what I'm comfortable sharing, which is a lot, you know, but also be comfortable within myself before I share that, so that anything that happens with that information, I'm solid on, you know? So yes, that's something that was a great question.
And then with that, since you kind of learning this medium, and you know, you said, you know, you're going to therapy, getting the kind of balance you feel like you need, and going through this process, have you learned like, oh, there's some things I shouldn't have said, and maybe there's some restitution I need to make with some family members because I crossed that boundary and I didn't know what I knew now I did before?
1,000%. Like, I get it wrong all the time. Like, that's just the reality of it. Like, I've done things that I shouldn't have done, and like I of course, like I feel like in therapy, like one of the main things you're learning is like accepting accountability for things that you can control, you know?
Right.
So like, yes, I grew up, like I'm like the youngest family member. I'm like the youngest child. So I'm younger than all of my family members. And I would like use that sometimes as and like the situations I've been in my family throughout life have not been my fault. Like that's just the reality. I was a child, or I wasn't born yet to create those situations, you know? But me as a grown person, when I'm having these conversations and like these really like arguments, like and going through it, I could still hold myself accountable to not being, to granting grace, you know, and not saying like hurtful things to people, you know, and like, you know, all the emotions that come from the things that I've been through, like nasty things have come out of my mouth. You know what I mean? That's just the reality of it. And in retrospect, regardless of if I caused a situation or I didn't, I do not want to be the type of person that says hateful, hurtful things to people, you know? So yes, I've definitely had to apologize. I've had to, you know, like ask for forgiveness. And I've had to have grace with myself, which is like the hardest thing for me to do. Like that's the thing. I hold myself at a very high regard. So you know, the guilt behind all of that is something I've had to work through for sure, you know? And I definitely, like me being like open to sharing so much, I've definitely had to understand that my perspective is my perspective.
Right.
And there's another person with another perspective and they can share their perspective, you know? And I also want to just always be very graceful when I'm talking about people, because we're all men and we all fall short, you know? And we're just humans, you know? Like everyone's not going to do everything right all the time.
Right.
And just in this point, you know, it's kind of, I guess, more controlled, you know, when you're talking with family and people in your circle of, you know, just being vulnerable and letting people into your space. And you're kind of in this new journey where that vulnerability is displayed on YouTube, and it can be anywhere at any time. So you don't know how the feedback or blowback or whatever would happen. In terms of coming to some kind of, I guess, stability or peace, having that vulnerability in, you know, YouTube that can get any kind of views. How are you able to be content with anything you put out, hoping, you know, there's not so much blowback or some random people walk up to you like, hey, yo, something.
Yeah. I feel like I've gotten good at sharing what I want to share. You know, I think I've gotten good at it. But I will say, like, my first podcast, like the one Pretty Girl Privilege podcast, I would, like, every day after recording, I would wake up with like a oversharing hangover. Like I would just be like, ugh, I hate that I said this, I hate that I said that, you know? And I wasn't as evolved as a person at that point, you know? That's why I knew that before starting this podcast, it was going to be like therapy. It was going to be like, I have to be working on myself to do this podcast. I cannot be doing this podcast if I'm not working on myself.
Right.
Because watching it back, even now I don't watch my podcast back, but that's based off of then, because when I have watched a few episodes back, I'm like, oh, okay, like I'm good, like there's no, you know, it's not as bad as it used to be, you know, like I'm growing, I'm evolving. But a podcast is a mirror, like really in your face, like it's therapy, and it's like it really like puts you on Front Street with yourself, you know? And yeah, I feel like I've gotten very good at like, I like who I am. You know, I like who I am, and it's taken a long time to get there.
Right.
But right now, I like who I am. I have had a podcast in this, for the record, episode maybe 5, childhood trauma and adulthood healing, where I got drunk and I was so disappointed in myself. And I was like, felt really guilty about it for like a week. Like it felt like a hangover for a long time because I got way too drunk on that episode. And in retrospect, I was beating myself up more than I needed to, you know?
Right.
But it's a learning experience, you know? Like it's a learning experience. It's out there now. Like, you know, you have to have thick skin.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, I just like, this is why we have this space, right? Like where we have an opportunity where people to come together, and really share. And I just also think what I love about our show, your podcast as well, Dom, which is called For the Record. And we'll talk more about how our viewers and listeners could have more access to your platform at the end of this talk show. It's just like, I love how you talking about like giving yourself grace, right? And I just feel like that's not something we often do when we're trying to be vulnerable, because it's like you're doing some self-work, right? Your intention sometimes to be vulnerable is not to hurt anybody, but it's also for you to like have this process of healing, right?
Yeah.
And this is so important for our generations a lot, because a lot of us are going through a lot of generation trauma. A lot of us are experiencing trauma that we don't even know is trauma. So, but when you see like certain people who are close to you start to open up, because it just always starts at home. Like if you never have that person at home, or your mom and dad who you feel comfortable opening up, you are going to open up in some capacity. But how do you open up healthy is exactly that. I think like is this what this process is about, right?
Yes.
But for me, like what also resonated with me, Dom, is I just particularly feel like, again, I'm a Black man, I'm an African man, and we could sort of go dive into exactly what I think vulnerability means to me. But I also think like being a Black woman is like, it's so much like thing that you guys experience. It's so much pain and suffering that you experience, but there's also a tendency where like you tend to just hold things in because the narrative is like being a strong Black woman, like you strong, be strong. But sometimes being strong means that you're suppressing your emotions, especially your unwanted emotions.
Yeah.
And that's why it sort of really resonated with me when you talk about like this concept of like avoidance. If you in a relationship or you with a family member, like especially they owe you money, or like a like your mom, you told me like you're gonna give this $300 back to me, but they don't. Be like, I'm your mother. Like small little examples like that. But you kind of like, you know what? It's cool. I don't want to open up a whole Pandora of this, so I just avoid it. When you're in a relationship, your partner does something to you that makes you unhappy, you kind of like, well, I'm afraid of how my partner is going to react. So you kind of like avoiding. I think we all do this on a daily basis, but somehow like we run away from our pain. We run away from our unwanted emotions. Like, what's your thoughts on that? And like, why it's important as a Black woman?
Yeah.
Again, to have a space where we're able to express yourself.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, yes, everything you said is so like true. I feel like even I am definitely the strong Black woman type, which is something I'm working through too, because I don't want to be that. I want to be in my soft girl era. You know what I mean? Like I want that for me, but that's a new concept that I ever even could think of, but me being so vulnerable, right? Like in this vulnerability, like where I'm on this podcast every week talking about like really deep stuff, and I'm going to therapy every week talking about really deep stuff. I am understanding how to identify my emotions more, because I didn't even know how. At 31 years old, I still sometimes don't know what the emotion is that I'm feeling.
I mean, and that is so important. A lot of us like, we get to be 31 years old, we actually don't know how to understand our own emotion, or how to label it, or how to express it. But go ahead, Fowler, can you expand on that?
Yeah, like, because we weren't raised like we weren't raised to have emotions. Like it was just like, don't like toughen up, like, you know what I mean? Get up and figure it out. Like, and it's funny because it's like, I hear people say this. I'm a boy mom. I hear people say this about like young boys all the time. Like our young Black men, we're like boys, not even men. We're like, don't tell them not to cry, right. All those things. And I'm like, yeah, for sure. I was raised like that as a girl, like just as a Black girl. It was like, girl, stop crying. Like, don't be a crybaby. Don't feel like this about this. This is what it is. You need to deal with it. Like, it was never like a time where it was like, okay, so how do you feel about this? Like, right. It didn't matter how I felt about it. Like, we just needed to do what we need to do. Like, I was raised like that. So now I'm very happy that I'm able to be this vulnerable and have emotions and express them and understand what they are. Because I know that like a lot of us don't know that, like we don't have that. We don't know how to do it. And you know, my platform is the perfect place to see that being figured out in real time, because that's me. Like, I'm just like, I don't know how I feel about it. I do that all the time on the podcast. I'm like, I don't know how I feel about something. I don't know how to identify my feelings all the time, you know? And that's just the reality of it. And I definitely avoid my like, I negate them. Like, it's just like, girl, I still have that mindset where it's like, just do what you got to do. It doesn't matter how you feel. Like, you know? Yeah. So no, we should care about how we feel a little bit more, you know?
I think, you know, at least similarities between the African community and the Black community. We have this kind of mentality, you know, whatever happens, take it to the grave or whatever. Especially more Africans, like even our parents. I'm not sure about y'all, but you know, some things you just don't even know about until like much later in life, and it's kind of instilled in you, like, all right, this is just the way how to be. But you know, I guess at this age or whatever we're going through, we kind of learn it's not as healthy, and you know, life doesn't have to be this way. And you know, being a mom, I guess adjusting to that kind of environment to allow your child not to inherit some of these traits. And what's, well, in your perspective, how were you able to identify, all right, this is some of the things that was instilled in me, but you know, I don't want to pass it on to the next generation. And now how were we able to identify and adjust? Because it's one thing to identify, you know, I mean, I say things that are wrong with you, but things that's a little bit toxic.
Like your traumas.
And it's another thing trying to implement stopping those kind of traits. So just personally, how were you able to be like, okay, these are some things that I've been going through, but all right, this time I'm going to stop it from affecting the next generation?
Well, I would definitely say that therapy helps me with that a lot, you know, because like therapy was so important to me. And like, you know, therapy is not for everyone, you know, I'm not here to like, I am advocating for therapy, but like, it helped me personally because I don't know how to identify my emotions, and I wasn't raised to do that. And yeah, so I needed some help figuring out what was going on in my head, in my heart, like all of it, you know? But everything's a lesson for me. You know, every single thing I go through in life is a lesson. I've been like that before therapy. Like, I've always just been like that. So like, I realized that I grew up getting beat with a belt, right? Like, and I see pros in that, because not pros in it, but me personally, I have some good character traits from it, right? I'm very disciplined. You know, I can follow directions very well. I'm disciplined, right? So that's the main takeaway from that, right? But I'm also aggressive and angry when I'm mad, and I will be physical, right? Like, I won't be because I'm growing and I know better, but I want to be, you know? And that came from that too. And it's just like me just knowing once I got older, it's like, where do you meet in therapy? Why when you got mad at your sister, did you say you want to put your hands on her? Why is that the first thing that you like resorted to? Like, and it's because when I was getting in trouble as a child, I was getting beat. Like, that's just how I associate it. So it's like, yeah, with my child, he could be doing stuff he's not supposed to do, whatever the case may be. I'm not going to beat him with a belt, because I don't want my child to grow up and think that when he's angry, he should put his hands on people.
He's
you know,
associating that with physical response.
And it is hard, because then that turns into, okay, so how do I discipline my kid? You know, I don't know how to discipline my kid because I was disciplined this way and I'm very disciplined. So now what do I do? You know, and then you have to find resources and figure out what you're going to do to discipline your kid, because you can't do what was done to you.
And a follow-up to that, you know, especially with young men, you're expected to have some kind of masculinity. There you go. But you know, there's this kind of mentality not to, you know, raise your kids a bit soft. There's one thing if you do all the right things you can as a parent, but if you know, take them to school, other kids might try him, and you know, the world ain't so kind, and kind of having that balance of, this is a safe space, but you know, when things happen, you need to handle business. So does that also run through your mind, like, how is this gonna happen?
Oh yeah, everything is about balance, which is so annoying, because nothing is nothing's black and white. Everything's gray, and it's just like I hate that. Like, I'm a Leo. I really like things like just like black and white, you know. But that's not life. That's something I've had to grow to understand too. It's just like, okay, you know all these things, you're learning all these things, but girl, there's still like, it's no like this is the one way you'll handle every situation. You know, like you'll always have to figure it out. But absolutely, I think about that all the time, because it's just like, when my son is crying, I do tell him to stop crying, but I tell him to not cry over things just because he wants something, right? You can't cry because you want something, but you can cry because your feelings are hurt, you know? And let's talk about why your feelings are hurt about a situation, but don't come to me crying because I won't give you a lollipop, you know? So like, you find the balance in that. And yeah, my son, I have parents say to me all the time, as a teacher, like parents say to me all the time, like, I told my kid to hit somebody back if they hit them, and it's hard for me.
Or like, you know, I'm not raising my son to be a punk.
Right.
So if somebody put their hands on him, and I told him to go ahead and put their hands on that person. But go ahead.
Well, how do you feel about that? I want to know.
How I feel about that? I think you are a product of your environment. Okay. But it's exactly like what you've been talking about. It's not surprising to a lot of people. Like, we're surprised that we tend to replicate, like, our own, like, sort of like expectations that we have with this home. Yeah. Because it's all about training, right? Right. Your parents trained you to do certain things, to act in certain ways, to respond certain ways. Yeah. So when you also have your own kid, you kind of like quickly resort to that first thing, because that's what you train. Your mind is trained to do. Right. It's all about like what you condition. Right. How you are conditioned. Right. Like, you know, are you talking about like getting the belt? Toby and I looking at each other like being African, like, you know. That's called, you know. Oh, wow. Okay. That's our childhood, you know. I mean, like, we call that childhood, you know. Yeah. You know, but and then later on, you kind of like look at it and be like, ooh, if this is what they call trauma, we are really traumatized.
Oh, wow, that's so interesting.
But we sit here now and laugh, but at the same time, like, you know, if you know, I have kids. I'm thinking more like if they do something really bad. Yeah. I'm the first thing I'm gonna be like, whoop, I got my butt whooped. Because these are the things that I did. You're about to reciprocate the same. Yeah. However, it's exactly what we sort of like. We have to be sort of be mindful of that, because anytime, like, you know, being in education, I have these conversations with parents. I kind of have to sort of like pause for a second and try to like understand where they're coming from. They're coming from a place where I could already tell, like, I know where you're coming from. However, like, you know, we also want to make sure like there's a time and place for everything, right? And that's one thing we want to make sure, like, I try to explain it to parents, like, well, there's a space where you can kind of express yourself, but there's a better way to do it. Yeah. Right? And what I don't want is teaching your child to be like, you respond violently all the time. Yes. Because you and I both know like what the impact that have a lot of Black men. Yes. Right. Yes. And you're not setting that person up for success. Yes. If violence or physical response becomes like the thing they know. Yeah. In order to express their emotions. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Because it could have a serious detrimental impact on them. 1,000%. Yeah. And we know, as a Black man, we've seen this all the time. Like, you know, this masculine energy. Like, you need to be masculine. Being masculine, it means like you gotta respond aggressively. Like, there's a difference between being aggressive but also being assertive. But we need to continue to push our kid, especially our young Black kid, how to express their emotions. Yeah. Yep. That's very true. I agree with that. That's tied to a much bigger issue that we're not even going to go into. Yeah, right now. For sure. Go ahead. But no, yeah, like, absolutely, I agree with that. And that is, yeah, I feel like we got to teach the babies balance too. Yes. That's the crazy thing, because it's just like, yeah, like my son, I don't want him to be soft, like, but that's what, I don't know what that even means. Right. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure that just coming from, you know, how I was raised, you know, like I understand that my ideologies are not going to be
perfect because, you know, I'm a work in progress, and this is just, you know, what I've seen. But the thing is, I don't want him to resort to violence, but I don't want him to allow someone to just beat on him. You know what I mean? So,
I mean, my perspective, you know, do whatever you got to do to make it home. That's how it was. Like, not everything regarding a fight. You have to judge the character. What's gonna happen after this fight? You know, y'all grew up here. If you get in a fight, somebody comes back with their cousins, their brothers, stuff like that. People find out where you live. So you know,
and I think it's all about like how we were raised, right? Like I grew up with a lot of siblings. Like, you know, I had 7 brothers and 4 sisters. Right? Wow. So it's like there's no room for crying. Like, if you're crying, that's always like the first sign of weakness, you know. So, but at the same time, I also understand to this day, I struggle personally how to communicate with my siblings. Like now, especially some of my siblings, because there's this tendency where like I suppress a lot of my emotions with some of the things that I experienced with them. But like now, like you say, I've had I'm a huge fan of therapy. You know, I'm glad that you mentioned that. I think therapy is powerful. And it's also a privilege to have access to that, which is also unfortunate. But once I was able to like go through therapy, you know, for someone like me who went to like all the top schools, who is always like have very high expectation of myself, even the way I carry myself, even the way I dress, people like from perception level, they would think like, oh, Sekou, your life is all perfect. Your life is all, no, it's not. You know, like I have my own issues, you know, but it took therapy for me to continue to like really like process those emotions, process those trauma. But once I did that, I'm in a much better space now. Where like, and I'm in a better space at an age where I should be, you know, because at this age that we all like, we grown. You know what I mean?
We're
at this
grown.
point.
I say, oh, we all.
I think we grown, right? And when you grown, and you still doesn't have the skills to like express your emotions, to like advocate for yourself, and it's difficult. Right? It's difficult, but also like you also get to a certain point where you tend to be automatically blunt with people at this point. And if you are so concerned about like how they feel or what they think about it, then it's you kind of go back to thinking like, oh, is there something wrong with me? You know. And this is why I just do think like therapy is huge, right? And therapy doesn't always have to be like going to a therapist, right? Is there anything else that you could suggest outside of therapy for people to learn how to like really understand their emotion or process their emotion in a way that's like healthy, or be vulnerable in a healthy way?
I would say podcasts, like that's a really good way to learn things. Like I learned a lot of things from podcasts. You know, there's a podcast about everything. So I would say podcasts. I mean, of course, like books, you know, prayer if you're religious, you know what I mean? Like, those are all tools that I've used, you know, and something about take away like one of your toxic coping mechanisms. Cause like one thing I learned, especially through Ramadan, like is like when you strip yourself of those like toxic coping mechanisms, like it allows you to like really just get clear, and it shifts your whole mindset, you know, and that'll help you. I don't know. I've been trying to figure out how to explain to people like how to go through something and not go around it.
Right.
You know, not try to go around it. And it's been difficult because people are just like not understanding. And I'm like, I don't know how else to explain it other than like, you just have to be ready to sacrifice. Just prepare yourself to know that you're about to not feel good for a while, you know, like it's not going to feel good. It may be depressing, like it may be whatever. You're going to feel a lot of emotions that are not like fun, easy emotions, you know, and just be willing to go through it and get to the other side. Like just trust the process. And I've been trying to explain that to people so much, but people are just not, I don't know. I haven't figured out exactly how to explain it to where people can be receptive to it, you know? Yeah. Working on that right now. I got a few people in my life that are just not doing what they need to do to get to where they need to be, you know?
Right.
And it's just like, you know, what can you do to shift someone's mindset? They got to do it for themselves, you know?
That's true. It's different if it's something, I guess emotional.
Yeah.
There's a different level to it. But if something's more goal oriented, like, oh, if you want to make 200K in the next 5 years, maybe you follow this path. But it's hard to show people how to be, I guess, emotionally intelligent.
Yeah.
Within, you know.
Yeah.
The process. But I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's a hard way to frame it. So people are like,
yeah. Like teaching a mindset shift is just like, how do you do that? You know what I mean? It's just like, I don't know. I've been trying to learn because I have some people where it's just like, you know, you see the potential in them, you know, and you're like, and you know what they want for themselves, but they're just not willing to put in that work, you know? And you can't even, like, you know, me being as blunt as I am, as we talked about this entire podcast, I can't sugarcoat it. I have to just let them know, like, yeah, no, you're going to be depressed. Like, you're not going to like life. Like, you know, like I have to be like real honest because that's just who I am.
Right.
And that's the truth. You know what I mean? But it's just like, I don't know if I'm like chasing them away from going after their goals with that. You know what I mean?
Right.
how about what's the benefit after they go through that whole process?
Ooh.
On the other side.
Yeah. But I feel like like sometimes with that mindset, when you just don't have the right mindset, you could be thinking there's other ways I can get it without like the struggle. You know what I mean? And I think that's where they're trapped at, like in that place where it's just like, I don't have to do all that to get it. I can still get it. But it's just like, no, you're never going to get it because you're going to, you know, if you don't like actually, whew, I don't know. I don't know. I'll be trying to help people, but I'm just trying to help myself every day too. So,
no, but I like I said, I got a chance to listen to your podcast. Like I said, beyond the aesthetic, I love the authenticity that you bring to the show. I also love like the conversation that you try to push, like, you know, conversations about marriage, conversation about like polygamy or like relationship, conversation about like, you know, whether like you could be with one person forever. So these are a lot of I'm sure like there's a lot of topic, but these are topic conversations that we have with ourselves all the time. And so like listening to your podcast so far, like I continue to see myself in those conversations. And that's what I love about it, you know? So I think that you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
I will continue to encourage you to really continue to push this space.
Yes.
Because like I said, I continue to say like you truly like represent the voice of our generation, you know, because our generation is evolving. It's changing constantly. Like some of the traditional way of doing things. We could all say like we could still be grounded in these traditionals. However, like the reality is we have to at some point make certain adjustment, right? So like talk to us a lot about these necessary conversations. What are some examples of these necessary conversations that you have had on the talk show, or like you look forward to having more discussion around?
Yes.
Right. Actually, let me rephrase that real quick if you don't mind. What's some of the most impactful discussions you think you've had so far?
Okay, like that. All right. So I do feel like, if I'm being honest, I feel like all the conversations have been like super impactful. I do feel like the one. So the one where the childhood trauma one where I got drunk and I was like so upset with myself, that was actually really a very teachable moment though. That had a major impact on me because I realized, even watching it back, it's like, girl, you got drunk to avoid the conversation. Like you were nervous about being present for that conversation, you know? So it's just like, actually, I thought I was comfortable talking about that stuff, but I wasn't, you know? And I thought I was ready, but I wasn't. So that taught me that. So that was the most impactful one for me. And for most people, like that's my most viewed episode. And it was just a really real thing. Childhood trauma. I was talking about our childhood trauma, and we didn't even really get to the adulthood healing because like it was like childhood trauma and like how we're processing it right now, you know? So that was like one of the most impactful ones. But we talked about like the body image one. The body image one was really like important. Like I had a girl on who's had her body done multiple times, and then me who doesn't have my body done. And we really talked about like women and the pressures we have, you know, from society about our
What they
bodies.
say, like the BBL.
Yeah.
You see that everywhere.
Yeah. And especially like now, right? Like right now it's a big thing. And this is like my homegirl. I love her to death. She's got her body done twice. And it's just like me personally, I'm not doing that, you know? And so I don't know.
So, quick question about that. You know, in your perspective, trying not to be too controversial.
Toby, I need you to be controversial. That's what this show is
Yeah,
about.
go ahead.
Toby, push the button.
Let's talk about it.
In terms of, you know, there's one thing that's, you know, body issues. Do you think it's more pressured when you say society? Is society more focused on how women expect women to look or how men expect women to look? Because there's all this conversation, women do this for women, but if no men pay attention, does it really matter?
Right. I would say this is hard. This is like a really hard question, and I really don't know the answer. Like, I feel like women are doing it for men. I feel like, because I feel like, yeah, we all want to be desired, right? Like, a woman wants to be desired. I feel like all of us want to be desired, but a woman for sure. Like, for a woman, being beautiful is like the most important thing, you know? So of course our bodies have a lot to do with that. And, you know, I think they do it for men. I think they want to convince themselves that they're doing it for themselves. But I think it's for men.
And then the key thing you said is desire. So the difference between being desired, being wanted, and being loved. So if we shift the focus from being desired to being loved, will we still have the same kind of effect in society, you believe? That's a little bit.
Yeah, that's hard because I feel like, yeah, I think that that's true. Yep, I think it's a mindset because, yeah, I don't want to be too controversial either, but
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. That's why we here.
And no, and I like respect any woman what she decides to do with her body, and I actually really do respect it because I'm like, whoo, girl, you dedicated. You going to get surgery. You go to another country to get surgery. Like, that's some dedication. Like, but I also feel like, honestly, like anytime I see a woman with like a BBL and all these things, like the first thing I think of is insecurities. It's like you're wearing your insecurities on your sleeve, you know? And yeah, I do think that really the mindset behind, like, why would I want to be with a man who wants me to have a fake body? You know, like clearly that's not love, like, you know? But I do think that women do, like a lot of women in general, you know, they want to be desired in that way where it's like sexually and like, you know what I mean? All the things. I don't know. It's hard for me to speak on that because I'm just not that way at all.
I guess the last comment on this is just one of the biggest concern is, you know, it's high risk surgery also, but it's also being mass completed in sometimes not very reputable places. And I'm not sure if people are paying attention to the trend about how many people are actually dying from these surgeries. And people are doing it multiple times. And it's kind of like, okay, it's one thing to do it, you know, for yourself, but, you know, you go under the knife and then you wake up on the other side. Like, is it really worth it? And like the damage you left with your family and stuff like that. It's
not. And that's one of my biggest things. It's just like, I got a child. I cannot be so vain that I go lay on the table and get surgery that I don't need, you know, that I could die from and leave my child here. And then he got to say, my mom died because she needed a BBL. No. It's like, for me, that's the obvious, you know, but there's obviously something in their brains that is not working that way, you know? And I just feel weird talking about it because I also feel like I haven't had, how do I say this without sounding pretentious? I've been desired, you know what I mean? So I don't know what, like, all right, for example, I had a friend who wanted fake boobs. And I'm like, girl, why do you want boobs? Boobs are annoying. Like, don't do it, this, that, and the other. Then I'm like, well, I've always had them. So how am I going to, you know, I don't understand it. You know what I mean? So it's not, you know what I mean? Like, I know I don't agree with that. I don't want them to do it, but also I don't understand their position. I'm not in their shoes. So I'm not judging them for doing what they feel like they need to do. And also I don't want to be, I'm okay with only men desiring me that like fake body, like real bodies. You know what I mean? Like, I'm okay with that too, you know? Like, I don't need a man who wants a fake body.
That's true.
You know?
No, it's just it's good that we having these conversations, right? Because these things are happening. A lot of our friends are changing. Some of our friends are getting married.
Yeah.
Some of our friends are either like getting through divorce, or some of our friends are changing their bodies and stuff.
Yeah.
So, but why do you think it's important for us to create a space where we could have these conversations? What's the power of the...
Real quick,
Go
I'm not
ahead.
sure if y'all seen the men that's doing like height changes now. Like
Now that's something.
Like
Yeah.
they crack their shins. So that like this one dude was 5'5".
Right.
He got a surgery now. He's like 5'8".
He's 5'8"?
Yeah. So
Okay.
the surgeries are even shifting to be more outrageous.
Right.
Because like the bone density and stuff will change as you grow old.
Yeah.
Because when he's like 60 years old, them things gonna start affecting him. Just want to throw that out there. It seems like it's affecting men too.
Right.
Starting, I'm like.
No, but also like one of the again unspoken things are that are out there, or like men are also getting a lot of surgery.
Yeah.
They get a lot of surgery done. But
Yeah.
ladies are not. A lot of the thing is like the conversation. It's funny how the conversation is about like most of the time women, because women are doing it.
Yeah.
But a lot of men are out there just having surgery in every way. You know,
Yeah.
whether that is getting their like stomach done.
Yeah.
So men are doing the same thing, but it's just like I just wanted to continue to push this space. So
Yeah.
what we trying to push is like creating this platform where we have to have these conversations.
Yeah,
Why
yeah.
do you think having conversation is important?
Yeah.
And how would that continue to like, empower us as an individual, but
Yeah.
as a society as a whole?
Yeah, so I feel like it's like what we talked about earlier, where we're talking about I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought because I was like so deep in thought of what you just said. But no, all right. So earlier when we were talking about like how do you figure out how to raise your child when you don't want to raise them how you were raised, right? And actually like understanding that it was wrong, but then actually like changing it, right? Like actually doing something different. I feel like my podcast and this podcast and like us having these conversations helps people to learn that through us, I'm real big on learning from someone else's mistakes, especially being the youngest child. Like that's something I feel like I've been able to I was blessed to do, learn from my siblings' mistakes. I didn't have to make them if they made them already. And I feel like these conversations are for that, so that we can shift as a culture and society, and as Black people, really, like, because we were all raised in a way that we don't necessarily want to raise. Not we were all, generally speaking, of course. Some people I'm sure were raised great, but like a lot of us were raised in a way where it was not completely healthy, and we want to raise our families different, and we just want to live our lives differently than our parents did,
Yes.
So I feel like us having these conversations just helps people learn and grow, and it gives information and it educates and it empowers, and like you were saying before, what's a different way, to work on yourself outside of therapy? And it's just like listening to For the Record podcast.
For the record podcast by Dom Fowler, correct?
Yes.
Right. So I want you to talk a little bit about For the Record podcast again, and like so talk to us about the process. What's the setups like? How do you go about finding the guests? And how do you prepare yourself to have these conversations? And is it a lot of it script? Is it a lot of it just on script, or like is it just like regular conversation?
Yeah, not gonna lie, I'm comfy on the mic at this point, like I've been through, I explained, my background. So at this point, and I think I just like have worked to get to this place. So no, it's not scripted. It's just, it is what it is. I have outlines, for my guests. Because I have it's just me. So every week I'm having people on who aren't podcasters necessarily. They're just people that can carry that conversation and speak about that topic, So I have an outline for them to make them feel more comfortable. And I use it too because there's a lot that you do. You guys know this in podcasting. It's like your brain has to be working in 3 different ways at like one time. You have to steer the conversation, but you also have to be present, but you also have to make sure you ask the right questions. And there's just a lot going on. So I use my outline, as bullet points to like get me back to where I need to be. But yeah, it's not real scripted. You said something earlier that like, I like was like, I'm gonna use that. You're like, these are the conversations we're having with ourselves like every day.
Yeah.
And that's what my topics are. You know, they're like conversations that like, when we were just having this conversation, you were talking to me about like being raised by like African parents and the difference between being raised by like Black parents. And I'm like, oh, you guys got to come on. We can talk about that. You know what I mean? Like,
But also like some of us being raised by like a white family too.
yeah, and me
yeah,
too. My
so
mom is white, so
Exactly. So
yeah.
You know, some of us, like particularly me, I had a, you know, there was a time in my life where like most of my life, half of my life, I was raised by in a white Irish family.
Wow.
And simultaneously being raised by an African family, so kind of growing up with those two, like, you know, family who are completely different, I really got to learn a lot about family,
Yeah.
what family means,
Yeah.
also like how I want to create my own family.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
That's a perfect example of
Yeah.
that. And it's just so much perspective out there, but most of the time we just don't talk about these
That's
things.
it. Like, conversations are important
Right.
and powerful, you
Right.
know?
And when we do, though, you start to see like that there's so much that we all have in common. There's something like, Toby, you might say, be like, oh, Toby, I didn't know you're going through that. You know, so like you become vulnerable with people, then you start to see they also get comfortable with you. They're starting to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
I think that's something we often like overlook.
Yeah.
But it's also like everything is also start with you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's been something that's been like really beautiful to see on my podcast. Like, and I didn't think about it before I did it. It wasn't something I intentionally did, but like once I started to sit down with these people, they're starting to tell me like they're just as vulnerable as me, even if they were nervous about doing that to begin with. And I realized like, oh, they feel comfortable with me, you know, and that's not something I take lightly, you know, like I want to protect them and take care of them in that moment because
Why do you think they feel comfortable with you? Like, what are some things that you doing, or is there something that you doing or saying that makes them feel like, okay, I need to put my guards down here too?
I think because I'm so open, it probably helps them be open, you know, because they're not going to say anything worse than what I'm saying. I'm not worse. I don't want to say worse. I don't want to frame it like that, but anything more
Right.
vulnerable than what I'm saying, you know, because
Right.
I mean, I just am like, whatever, like, I don't, you know, but I do it and, you know, with balance, I know how to do it. I know how to do it now where it's like, I could be saying a lot and you still not know what's going on. You know what I mean? So it's just like, I've mastered that at this point, or I'm getting to mastery, you know, I'm working towards mastery, but so yeah, so I think me being so vulnerable just allows them to be, but also like I was just saying, like I am there to protect them, you know, like I'm not going to let them like say something super crazy and not like, and if something is said that just I know people might read wrong, I'm going to like nip that in the bud right there, like this is what she meant, not that, you know. And like I am taking care of my guests while they're there, you know, especially if they're not podcasters and they're just like nervous, and we are there to have a vulnerable conversation. So
Right.
I think that is like something that I realized about it too. People get like real open and deep on my podcast. Like, I've had a girl who's like works on E and like TMZ, and she came on my podcast and she was like telling us her like a lot, like, you know, like she got really vulnerable, and I felt so honored. And I'm just like, I realized like, oh, that's great, because we need that. We need to see ourselves in other people. You know what I mean? And it just, if we're all just open and real, life would just be so much better, you
Right.
know? I don't know.
We just all going through it.
Yeah,
Most of the
right.
time, right.
Right.
And we just don't want to have these conversations. So
Yeah.
So that's why I really appreciate your podcast. I appreciate the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
I just think once again, we at the end of it, like we have the same platform too, is to educate yourself,
Yeah.
educate people around us. So talk a little bit about who are your who are your target like audience?
Audience.
Yeah, like, you know, I've noticed few things from the show. I see that sometimes it's kind of like a focus group.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
have, like, women,
Yep.
women sometimes, and you pick particular issue that pertain to the
Yep.
black woman, but then you also, again, you haven't done this yet, but you also talk about having an all man film.
Yeah.
So talk to us a little bit about that and why you have why you targeting this particular group of audience.
Yeah, like it is just us, like is my target group. So like black people, like millennials, really, like honestly, like people our age and younger, like, you know, too, because they can clearly learn from us.
Can you give us like an age range? I know you're not supposed to ask a woman their whole age.
Well, I said my age a few times. I say anything. I'm telling y'all, you can ask me anything. But no,
Right.
but so yeah, so anywhere from like probably like honestly, I don't want really babies watching it. So like let's say like 18 to 35, 18 to 45, let's say. Right. You know what I mean? Like 18 to 45, you could watch it and grow and learn from it. But that wasn't really intentional. I didn't have an intentional target audience. It just, these are the conversations that these people want to hear, you know, like, because I am me and we're the same, you know, so it's just like this, we're all going through the similar things. So these are going to be the people watching my podcast. I actually have a lot of men who watch it, which I didn't think that I wouldn't. I didn't know how that would go, you know? It's funny because we shoot Sundays at 2. I'm like, football season, we got to change that because, you know, for my men and for me, I'm going to be watching football. So like, yeah, that's not going to work. We're going to have to do Saturdays or something because football Sundays are dedicated to that. And my producer was like, well, it's a lot of girls who watch. I'm like, there are a lot of men too, you know? So it's us though. Like that would be my target audience at this point, is like Black people that are my age. And I mean, not that like any other race can't watch the podcast. You can watch the podcast. A lot of things we're saying is going to be from the perspective of a Black woman. So, you know, or a Black man. So, yeah, that's that on that. I haven't had a white guest yet, but I will too. I'm not like, you know, against that, but you know, I just am Black, so that's who I'm mostly around, you know.
Right.
But yeah, like I just think it's just us, you know. I had like a motherhood episode, so of course all the things that I am, you can come to the podcast and hear about real life things from the perspective of that, and I'm a lot of things.
Right. So
you know what I mean?
Just like give us few topics so our viewers know exactly like, hey, if I'm sort of thinking about these, or these are the things I'm experiencing, that they can come on your talk show to actually like, you know, get more insight. What's some of the topic you have so far on your show?
Right. Our 10th episode is tomorrow, so there's not that many. I'll just name them real quick. So the first one was starting over and therapy, and then adulting and friendship. So like being
adulting and friendship.
Yeah. That one was
that's a great topic.
Yeah, right. Because it's like hard to keep friends as an adult, you know, or not. Like it's hard to maintain those relationships as an adult, you know. And then the body image one, we had motherhood and identity, which I want to do an identity entire topic episode, like identity thing, because I think that's real important for Black people. We all have identity issues, like Black people, not necessarily like, you know.
Absolutely.
So childhood trauma, and then remaining ambitious through life's resistance. That was like what we were talking about earlier, where I'm trying to like help people to do that, and I don't know where we got with that one. It was a good episode, that was powerful. And then we're doing keeping it spicy in a relationship. We did part 1 with women. Tomorrow I'm doing all men. So keeping it spicy in a long-term relationship.
I listened to that one. That was good. I highly recommend.
That's important. Right. Like, you know, like, yeah, like it's hard to keep it spicy with one person for a long period of time.
Right.
And then women's pressure to get married at a certain age.
Right. Men also have to find a way to keep it spicy. Right, Toby?
I guess.
Are you in a relationship?
I'm married.
You're married.
How long? Toby also has a daughter as well, right?
Oh, that's how old?
Toby's a dad. He's a father.
8 months.
8 months. Congratulations.
That's happening fast, bro.
Yeah.
Jeez.
That's exciting.
We gotta see her soon.
Yeah. I don't think you ever seen her. Oh, damn.
Dang.
Yeah. We gotta get that done.
No, that's a beautiful age. It will be a beautiful age all the way up until like 9, then it get annoying.
Right. Wow. That's so far it's been great, Dom, to have you. So we talked a little bit about the audience, the setup, the topics. Is there anything else that you want to share with us today that we haven't asked you at all?
I feel like you guys were like really thorough. I feel like we talked about pretty much what it is, like what it's about. We do go live every Sunday at 2. So it's a live podcast, so you can actually, that's another thing, no editing. So I have to be comfortable being vulnerable, and I have to be on point because we don't edit. We just put it out there.
Oh, wow. So it's live?
It's
and
live.
It's on what? YouTube?
It's on YouTube.
Only YouTube?
No, it's on all platforms, but YouTube is where it's live at.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And you can comment, like you can live, like chat with us during the podcast. So that's actually a really important piece that I left out. Because you can actually get in on the conversation right then and there every Sunday at 2. And I like just let you guys know where to find it. So it's on the Talk to Me Nice podcast network. So I'm on a podcast network, and on their page on YouTube, you'll see their podcast, and they have 4. They have the Talk to Me Nice podcast, it's a podcast about relationships. They have Sipping with Friends, which is a podcast actually with 4 like middle-aged people from Philly who are really good and really funny. I shouldn't call them middle-aged. You'll probably be mad at me, but like they're all like 40, I think. Like so that's not whatever. So very funny, very good. Sipping with Friends. And then there's Divas After Dark, which is 2 best friends. Girls who own a dance studio together and just talk about, girl things. And then me, the For the Record podcast with Dom Fowler, you'll see is on the top of the podcast playlist. You can also find us on IG. Actually, let me just tell you exactly what our IG is, because I actually don't. Okay, it's FTR_pod_Dom.Fowler. So it could be easier just to find Dom.Fowler and then just hit the For the Record link in my bio. But yeah, that's where you can find us every Sunday at 2. You can chat live with us if you want to come on and you feel like you have something important to talk about. You can always DM me because I'm always looking for new guests. It's just me, so that is like one of the I don't know what made me, I know what made me do that, but it's hard doing it just by yourself, and depending on people to like show up. That is like one of the that's one of the cons.
Right, that's definitely we also experienced the same thing.
Yeah.
And you also got, you gotta be you also gotta be smart about who you bring into the talk show. You kind of want to bring the right people who will add value to the talk show. For sure. So but it's great though. I really love this conversation. I love that, Dom, you have this platform for the record, because a lot of us want to listen to podcasts, but we kind of want to listen to podcasts that's sort of like connected to our daily lives. And I also get a lot of my sort of like knowledge these days. Or by listening to podcasts. Because it's easy to just listen to podcasts, like whether you're driving or whether you're going for a walk or whether you're by yourself or you home. But it's just, you want to continue to find podcasts that is relatable. You could relate to. And I definitely think a lot of our friends or colleagues could definitely like learn so much from your podcast.
Thank you.
So I appreciate you for coming on the talk show today. We get into the home stretch. We do just have 1 or 2 questions for you. You want to ask about the Jollof question?
No. Before that, I have one more.
Okay.
Toby has a lot of questions.
I love his questions. They're good.
It's good. Toby, she might start charging you for these questions. I think we were supposed to ask a certain amount of questions. But go ahead. She's giving you a pass.
So for the live videos, since, the key focus of your podcast is vulnerability, have you ever had situations where your guest was like, I might have said too much. Can we edit that or pull that down?
No.
Oh, really?
And don't, let's knock on wood, because I don't want you to, jinx me. But no, I haven't had that. But I think people come on with they know what it is. I send, an outline, look, this is what it's it is. It's, live. I give them a few coaching tips, and then, they get to, practice a week before when I send them the outline on what we'll talk about. I don't really veer off from the outline and just add something crazy, And if I am going to add something that's going to be crazy or off the outline, not crazy, I'll say, you don't have to answer this, in real time. You don't have to answer this, or just answer it how you want to answer it, But I've been lucky. I do really vet my people. It's not like I just have anyone on the podcast. What you were saying, that's another reason why it's hard, because I have to make sure I'm having quality people on there, and no one's done that yet, but they can't, because I'm not taking it down. It's live, it is what it is.
It's on the internet.
Yeah, it's already there.
It's there.
Yeah.
It's awesome. So we got 2 more questions, Toby.
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Two more questions. We always ask our guests, every guest to come on the talk show. Jollof rice. There's a lot of
country.
controversies or debates, and this debate was been going on before we were even out here. So it's about which country
Makes the best one.
makes the best jollof rice. I'm sure you hear the debates all the time.
Yeah.
And we're trying to really make sure it doesn't get escalate to violence. We have no time for that.
Yeah.
But you often hear about Jollof, Nigerian Jollof, Ghana Jollof, the Toby, hold your body. This question is for the guests. Liberian Jollof rice,
Okay.
Senegalese Jollof rice, I'm from Guinea. So we also have Jollof rice. But again, we a tiny minority, so you don't really hear that. But these are the 4 countries that I would say that truly make the jollof rice. So we just want to ask you.
Which one I think is the best?
Oh, wait, sorry. Do you say Senegalese?
Senegalese.
I say Senegal,
Yeah.
Senegal, Ghana, Nigeria, Liberia, and we just want to know. Like, I'm not sure if you ever had jollof rice. If you did, awesome. But which country do you believe makes the best jollof rice?
You know, it's crazy. I only had it once, and I think it was Nigerian. So yeah, and it was delicious. Let me just say that it was really good. But I can't compare because I only had it once.
Based on because you only had Nigerian.
Yeah, I only had Nigerian jollof rice.
That's the only one you need.
So,
I said nothing.
Are you Nigerian?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
All right. So what's your response?
Yeah, I want to.
I mean, it's clear.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Nigeria.
So she's going with Nigerian Jollof. So today, Nigerian Jollof won. All right, so we keep in tally so far.
Okay.
I think Nigeria's up by 2 points. Right?
Like 30, but.
I think our last guest also said something different. But we have to go review the record, for the record. Like, you got to make sure we're speaking facts here.
Yeah.
But yeah, today, Nigerian Jollof, I believe is the best jollof. Also.
Yeah.
All right, congrats to Nigeria.
Yeah.
Cool.
It was so good.
And my last question is, you shared a lot with us today. Appreciate your vulnerability. Appreciate you coming on this talk show, Dom. Given everything that you know, given everything that you've been through, right? If a 13-year-old version of Dom is sitting in front of you right now, what would you say to her? Like, what advice would you give to her?
I would tell her to stay true to herself. Yeah, I would just tell her to stay true to herself. Don't allow others to cause you to waver on who you are. You know, stay grounded in who you are and grow and be open for coaching always. But find balance in that because you don't want to lose yourself. Like, you are who you are for a reason. That person that you are, those characteristics that you have are what will take you where you're supposed to go in life. So don't allow for other people to have you veer off of and from who you are, you know? And that's what I would tell myself. Yeah, there's been a lot of unlearning and relearning in my life, you know, just based off of like me being coachable. Like, me having that discipline from my dad has also caused me to like sometimes follow the rules too much, you know, like allow people to like be too submissive, you know what I mean, in certain cases in life. And in retrospect, it's like, no, stay true to who you are. You know, so just be grounded in that and always be working on yourself, but stay true to who you are.
Incredible.
I do want to say thank you guys so much for having me.
Yeah, of course.
Yes, thank you for the hospitality.
Yeah.
This is my first time having pepper soup. It is amazing.
Awesome. Yeah, shout out to our kings and queens.
Yeah.
That's where we got it from.
So good. And yeah, you guys, this is awesome. Like, I listened to the podcast when you came back from Africa. And yeah, you guys, I'm really excited and happy to see like Black men sit down and just have conversations. You know what I mean? Take time out on your Saturday afternoon to sit down and do something so productive. And you know, it's just a beautiful thing to see Black men do that. So yeah, so thank you so much for having me. And you gotta make that trek over to Jersey to come home for the record.
Yeah, we would love to be on the record.
Yeah.
That would be an honor. It would be great. But, you know, I think at the end of the day, there's so many beautiful things that Black people are doing here, like Africans, are doing here, and we just want to continue to highlight those shakers and movers into the community.
Yeah.
Because it's the narrative is out there. It's like, you know, black people ain't doing this. Like, listen, black people are doing it. Black people been doing it.
Yeah.
But we just want to continue to push that space.
Yeah.
Change the narrative. And you're doing the same thing too. So
yeah.
Shout out to you. Say anybody. I know you have guests on the talk show. I love how you go back and forth with the guy.
Oh, Ryan, I know.
You go back on the thing with Ryan. Shout out to Ryan.
Yeah, Ryan's the best.
Like,
shout out to Ryan.
Yo, keep holding them accountable.
Yeah, he holds it down for the men. He does. He does. I love him. That's my guy.
But is there anybody you want to give a shout out to on the today, whether that's on the show or outside of the show?
Yeah, I mean, definitely shout out to Ryan. Like, he is like the backbone of For the Record podcast.
Sound effects.
Yes, the soundboard.
The soundboard is hilarious.
Yeah, soundboard is
we
good.
Definitely need that.
Yeah, shout out to Ryan. Shout out to honestly everyone who has been on For the Record podcast thus far. You know, like all those people. Like, shout out to like Simone, who's been on there twice. Shout out to Eddie, who's going to be on there for the third time. Like, shout out to like my real friends that hold me down and come on, and Gia, everyone who's come on the podcast and, you know, blessed me in that way. I'm appreciative for your vulnerability, and just like, yeah, shout out to everybody Black, honestly.
Yes. All right.